It's a disaster. But what America really has become is rich people against poor people.
That's it. And there are millions of people that watch inside the NBA. There are millions of people that are familiar with Charles and his message and how he's been on TV with Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Shaq for many, many years. And he's always toyed with the idea of running for office. He once toyed with the idea of running for governor of Alabama, although he was going to potentially do it as a Democrat, and he would have failed miserably. Is what it is. I do believe that Chuck knows a lot of good stuff related to politics. I think his intentions are for the betterment of people, which is not something you can generally say for a lot of these guys. We've seen how selfish a lot of these athletes are, especially somebody like LeBron. But Chuck really gets it. And for that, I appreciate him saying what needs to be said, that it's both sides. It's not one side. And that it is just one big grift. But the fact that he said it's a class war, oh, he's going to get a talking to. At this point, I don't know how much Ted Turner really cares, but there's no question that what he's saying is right.
And I wish people would understand that politicians do a good job of making us fight with each other, but it's really rich people against poor people. They try to make it about black, white, immigration, homosexuality, and all these different things. But what it is rich people making poor people not like each other. And until we address that, we're never going to be successful here.
Couldn't have said it better. You know, Chuck would do he's the type of guy that would probably do really well with a podcast if he just wanted to go with it and not care about, you know, what anybody thinks. It's not that he ever really did. He's always been somebody who just says what's on his mind. He's not always right, but he's right a lot. And that's sometimes more than enough. He'd be critical, but fair. And if the goal here is to ultimately transform politics into service, which is what it sounds like he's fighting for. The service we provide is whether or not people are willing to recognize that our biggest problem is corporate special interests have controlled, dominated our system for quite some time, and that change needs to happen sooner rather than later. And I am extremely grateful for Chuck saying that. And I would assume a lot of others would be as well. So kudos to him in doing the right thing. Now, one of the bigger problems that we saw recently, and I wanted to address this, and I'm going to be putting out a post for us tomorrow related to Bernie and Bobby Kennedy. You know, if we were living in a time where the powers that be truly understand the magnitude of the circumstances we're living in right now, Bernie Sanders and RFK Jr. would be joining forces in some capacity. They would be looking to coalesce and figure out how to make things work in areas that they agree on, not just trying to bury Bobby because people disagree with him on vaccines. Then they're turning it around and going after Bernie because he received donations from people who worked in the pharmaceutical and private insurance industry. That, to me, is a travesty considering our situation. So the question is, what can be done? This is Bernie making a big deal out of nothing during the hearings at the end of last week.
Started a group called the Children's Health Defense. You're the originator. Right now, as I understand it, on their website, they are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Unvaxxed, Unafraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Next one is No Vax, No Problem. Now, you're coming before this committee and you say you're pro-vaccine. Just want to ask some questions. And yet your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines.
Some people are going to be unvaccinated, Bernie Sanders. This has been a known thing for generations. This is not new. This has always been a thing. There's a reason why people homeschool their kids. Some people do not want to participate in collectivism. Call it whatever you want to call it. But there will always be people that feel this way. The fact that Bernie feels that this is the hill he wants to die on, rather than saying, what is it going to take for us to work together? There's also something to be said about the fact that Bernie wants to go after RFK on single-payer healthcare, which I would agree is a valid point, because I support single-payer healthcare. Jen does. You all know what we stand on that issue. But where does colleagues stand? Where do they stand? They don't support it. I don't see Bernie calling them out. And they're in a pretty powerful position as well, much more powerful in terms of being able to enact policy regarding healthcare than anything Bobby is capable of doing. If you ask me, that's a pretty big deal. But this is what Bernie wants to spend his time on. Why would he give a fuck about showboating for the cameras? I don't understand. He doesn't have much time left. And the idea that this is what he wants to waste it on is a huge disappointment for all of us that have been supporting him for a very long time. But he apparently has a little bit more to say.
Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are pro-vaccine, that you're going to have your organization take these products off the market?
Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not part of it. I resigned from the board.
That was just a few months ago. You founded that. You certainly have power. You can make that call. Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with leadership.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive of this clothing, which is militantly anti-vaccine?
I am.
I don't know what purpose this serves. I honestly don't. And this showmanship is so fucking stupid. And the reason I'm criticizing Bernie is because I don't give a fuck what Elizabeth Warren does. I don't give a fuck what Senator Bennett does or Senator Tillis. Who cares? They're all scum suckers. They don't stand for anything other than corporate special interests and their own fucking useless careers. But Bernie is supposed to stand for something. He always has. But he's going down this road. For what purpose? And there is hypocrisy to Bobby. He's not perfect. There's tons of things I don't agree with. That doesn't mean he doesn't have good points. Ray, Bernie has accepted donations from people who work in big pharma and private insurance. There is a difference. It's not corporate special interest money. It's all within the guidelines of what you can and what you cannot accept. And that is the distinction. And this is where Bobby is wrong and are his supporters. The knock on Bernie Sanders that he, for some reason, is a shill for private insurance and big pharma, you got to come up with a better talking point. How about you just say that Bernie's a coward who won't stand up to the people who have fucked him over for a decade? That's actually something that would land. And people would be like, nah, you know, you're kind of right. Bernie's always been a pushover for the Democratic Party establishment. He has had many an opportunity to stand up to them. And he doesn't take it, even though he could have had millions of people behind him backing him up. He didn't do it. What purpose does that serve? You should be talking about the fact that our food is poisoned, that we do not have any semblance of a health care system. Because if we did, people would be a lot less vaccine skeptic. Why? Because the profit motive would be removed. Then you don't have to question whether people will be wasting their time, unless you think that it's just run by a bunch of psychopaths that want people to die from taking a vaccination. I think people have every right to be vaccine skeptical. I'm vaccine skeptical, and I've been vaccinated. Because there is a for-profit motive. Now, I'm not saying that Bobby is some crusader for better healthcare in the United States. He's an extremely privileged person from a very dynastic family. But there's a part of him that I think does care. He has his mission. He wants to fight it. Considering where we are right now, I say give him a shot. But that's me. Other people might not agree, and that's okay. But this, to me, is such a waste of time, such a waste of effort and energy and resources. And Bernie knows better. For the love of God, it's almost like they've got something on him, and that's why he does this. Because it doesn't make sense.
Supportive of vaccines. I will. I want good science, and I want to protect.
But you will not tell the organization you founded not to continue selling that product. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Blackburn.
Thank you so much.
That's RFK Jr., Denise. And who do you want? Who's out there right now that's actually going to address the fact that we have poisoned food, that is talking about the fact that we have all different types of additives in our food supply that should not be there? That's what being the HHS secretary is supposed to be dealing with, the health crisis in our country. Yes, vaccines matter. He does not have the authority to stop people from getting vaccinations. So what's the real issue here? That's where we're heading. That's what we're going to end up with if we don't try to break through in some way, because we're in hell. I don't trust him either. Who do you trust? I don't even think I can trust Bernie fucking Sanders anymore. That's pretty low. One thing I am grateful for with Bobby Kennedy is that at least we're talking about the fact that our food is poisoned.